the freelancers in this country generate and contribute about £305 billion to the economy. But because of, for no fault of their own, they take a particular financial planning route, and yet they're being pursued by something called the loan charge. There's also IR35.
Yep.
6 banks have already said that they will no longer take freelancers on. So there's jobs to go, and they'll probably go offshore and things like that. They already are going. Yeah. There's been recent announcements from an insurance company doing the same. There's the oil and gas industries. They're going the same way. There's with the loan charge, because of the aggressive way that they are being pursued, there's already been 7 confirmed suicides. There's people.
Sorry, I was just going to say.
Yeah, there's people with mental. The question I have is to these candidates: how are they going to deal with that, and what is their policy on the loan charge and the IR35 to help these people out?
And just to explain, if I got this right, the loan charge, it was a system for paying people, mainly freelancers, where it was paid as a loan rather than your salary, and then the government has decided to
and it's legal, and it is still legal, and it's still going on.
Yeah, so that's effectively the issue. Okay, so who would like to take the question? We go Chris Bowers.
Yeah.
Take it on first.
Delighted to go first because Liberal Democrat MPs have led the fight against the unfairness of the deal, in particular Ed Davey, but Stephen Lloyd down in Eastbourne as well. I mean, there's a principle at the root of this, and that is when you make decisions on the basis of a financial regime, and then later that financial regime changes, the decisions you took at the time should not be invalidated as a result of the subsequent change. It's the same principle applies to pensions, and why the WASPI issue is so important, because you've got people who make decisions based on a financial regime, and then later on they are ended up being punished by changes. And that is fundamentally unfair. And the real unfairness here is the fact that people are being pursued for tax going back 20 years, going back to 1999. And it's not even the revenue, even though it's IR35, HMRC is in some cases insisting that everything gets paid by the 5th of April next year, which is causing immense hardship. And yes, I wasn't sure if it was 7 suicides, but I know that there have been suicides and the immense hardship that's been reported as a result of that. The first thing we do is we have a cut-off point when the finance bill changed the regime, which was 2016. So there should be a maximum clawback of 3 years. And that's what the Liberal Democrat MPs who've been pursuing this have said. Whether it's fair to go back to 2016 is part of the small detail, which I'm not going to get into in an answer like this. But we are firmly on the principle that because those 17 years of those financial arrangements of being paid in the form of a loan were legitimate, that nothing should be clawed back until at least 2016. I will add one other thing, though, and that is those of us who... I'm a freelance myself, and I rigorously pay my tax as appropriate, and I therefore do not want other people to dodge fair tax through a questionable payment mechanism. Therefore, the idea that this should be changed is not of necessity wrong. And in fact, I do think there were some questionable practices when someone's get paid by a loan which you then never pay back, because it does actually dodge tax. But that does not deny the fact that it was legal up to 2016. So I'm not criticising the change in the law, but I am criticising chasing back. And any repayment regime, whatever it is, whether it's 3 years or less than 3 years, has got to be fair. Otherwise it causes hardship and doesn't do anybody any good.
Approaches for the last 35 minutes.
Okay,
I'll
be very quick. Yeah, Caroline Lucas, our MP in Parliament, has also been working to stop the retrospective nature of this. I just would say that there are lots of tax avoidance practices going on in the high-end part of it. So I think it's, for example, Google or what have you, or offshore companies. So there's an awful lot of, activity that could be going on to claw tax from, high earners. And so I think it's really important that people who are working really hard for a living and trying their best, that they're actually supported to manage the tax system. So, but we would be against tax avoidance, but we're definitely against the retrospective nature of, challenging people in this way financially.
We've got quite a large cohort in Wilden of people that have been dealing with the loan charge, and I've been working with a number of families over the last couple of years. There is an independent review in place, and I think the right thing to do is to allow that to run its course and see what the conclusion will be. If I'm re-elected, I will continue to do my best to lobby on behalf of all the cases within Wilden. Some of those are incredibly sensitive. So there's a loan charge and there's IR35 as well. Both of them are being reviewed. But I must just say, I know this must be incredibly difficult if you're trying to deal with the circumstances that you're in. But there are only two options into number 10, and one is Jeremy Corbyn and one is Boris Johnson. If you really think that Jeremy Corbyn, with everything he says and does, is going to back independent consultants and contractors and help them with the IR35 or loan charge, I think you're very much mistaken.
It's funny because I posted on social media today how this election has been a learning curve for me, and I hadn't heard about this issue until the general election campaign. So I did go away and I did a bit of research, not least talking to my sister who's an accountant and was able to explain it to me. So what I have said to your fellow campaigners is that I would undertake to make sure that this issue was brought up within Parliament. I'm actually heartened to hear from us that there is an investigation going into it, because I didn't actually realise that. But like my colleagues, I think it is unjust that there is such a vast backdating going on. It seems that people are having to pay back huge amounts of money quite rapidly, which obviously is not fair. Just coming back onto Nuss's point that Labour is not the party for the small business person, I have here Labour's 20 pledges for business, which includes a raft of special arrangements for small businesses to make sure that they are not penalised and that they're encouraged to flourish. So I'm not going to go into all of the ins and outs of that here, but you're very welcome to chat to that afterwards.